November 3, 1907, Sunday night. New York City. 40 trust company presidents arrive at JPMorgan's private library. They walk through the front doors. The doors lock behind them. Morgan stands before them. 70 years old. Handlebar mustache. Stone-cold stare. "Gentlemen," he says, "we're not leaving until this is fixed. For 2 weeks, banks have been collapsing. The stock market has crashed. People are rioting to withdraw their money. America has no central bank, no Federal Reserve, no safety net. The entire U.S. economy is about to collapse. And the only person who can stop it is one private citizen, J.P. Morgan, the man who financed U.S. Steel, who controlled 21 railroads, who owned General Electric, the man whose firm controlled resources worth $22.245 billion, more than the value of all the property in 22 states west of the Mississippi. This is the story of how one banker became more powerful than the government, and how he saved America, then terrified it. Visual: young Morgan, banks, railroads, steel mills. Narration: April 17, 1837, Hartford, Connecticut. John Pierpont Morgan was born into a wealthy banking family. His father, Junius Spencer Morgan, ran a successful London banking house. Educated in Switzerland and Germany, he wanted power. And in the late 1800s, America was the perfect place to get it. The Gilded Age, railroads spreading like veins across the continent, steel mills roaring, electric lights flickering to life. But there was chaos. Too many railroads, cutthroat competition, price wars, bankruptcies. Morgan saw opportunity. His strategy was simple: consolidation. Buy competing railroads, merge them, eliminate waste, control rates, maximize profit. By the 1890s, Morgan and his partners held controlling interests in 21 railroads. Then he turned to steel. In 1901, Morgan orchestrated the creation of U.S. Steel, buying out Andrew Carnegie for $480 million and merging dozens of steel companies into one massive corporation. It was the first billion-dollar company in history. Morgan also helped form General Electric and International Harvester. He didn't just invest in companies. He restructured entire industries. His method became known as Morganization: ruthless efficiency, centralized control, elimination of competition. Critics called it something else: monopoly. But Morgan didn't care about critics. He cared about stability, profit, power. And in 1907, all three were about to be tested. Visual: stock market chaos, banks with panicked crowds, newspapers. Narration: October 1907. A speculator named F. Augustus Hines tries to corner the copper market. The scheme fails spectacularly. Banks that lent money to Hines face runs. The panic spreads to affiliated banks and trust companies. Then, on October 22nd, the Knickerbocker Trust Company, New York City's third-largest trust, collapses. The Knickerbocker collapse spreads fear throughout the city. Regional banks start withdrawing reserves from New York. Within days, the panic goes national. Stock prices fall catastrophically, the eighth-largest decline in U.S. stock market history. Interest rates on stock exchange loans soar to 70%. Brokers can't get money. Companies can't operate. By Thursday, October 24th, a chain of failures littered Wall Street. 12th Ward Bank, Empire City Savings, Hamilton Bank, First National of Brooklyn, International Trust, Williamsburg Trust, Borough Bank, Jenkins Trust, Union Trust. One by one, they fall like dominoes. People mob banks to withdraw their savings. Fistfights break out. Police are called. America is staring into the abyss. He's not even in town. J.P. Morgan is attending a church convention in Richmond, Virginia. When news reaches him, he takes the next train back to New York. Morgan arrives to chaos. But he doesn't panic. He goes to work. Visual: Morgan Library interior, bankers gathered, dramatic lighting, narration. Morgan's strategy is simple. Triage. Identify which banks can be saved, which must die. Pool resources. Stop the bleeding. Secretary of the Treasury George Cortelyou earmarks $35 million of federal money to deposit in New York banks. But it's not enough. Morgan meets with the nation's leading financiers in his New York mansion. He forces them to devise a plan to meet the crisis. James Stillman, president of National City Bank, plays a central role. Morgan organizes a team that redirects money between banks, secures international lines of credit, and buys plummeting stocks of healthy corporations. Morgan summons the bank presidents. "Gentlemen," he says, "we need $10 million in 10 minutes. The bankers pledge the money. The exchange stays open Friday, October 25th. More panic. Morgan convinces the bankers to pledge $9.7 million more. The exchange narrowly makes it to closing bell. But one crisis remains. The brokerage firm Moore & Schley is deeply invested in Tennessee Coal, Iron and Railroad Company, TCI. Morgan has a solution. His company, U.S. Steel, will buy TCI, absorbing Moore & Schley's debt and preventing the collapse. There's just one problem. Such a merger would give U.S. Steel monopoly power. And President Theodore Roosevelt, trust buster extraordinaire, might block it. Morgan needs Roosevelt's approval. He sends 2 representatives to Washington overnight. They meet with Roosevelt at breakfast, explain the crisis. Roosevelt, understanding the stakes, agrees not to challenge the merger. The deal goes through. Finally, at 4:45 a.m., he places a document in front of them. "Sign," he commands. They sign. The trust companies agree to support each other with a pool of funds. The panic ends. Morgan saved the American banking system. Visual. Newspaper headlines praising Morgan, then critical cartoons, Pujo Committee, narration. Morgan is briefly seen as a hero. Lord Rothschild sends word of his admiration and respect. Newspapers celebrate him as the savior of American finance. Widespread fears concerning plutocracy and concentrated wealth soon erode this view. Why did one man have more power than the government? Was the panic engineered to damage trust companies so that traditional banks, Morgan's banks, would benefit? Did Morgan take advantage of the panic to allow U.S. Steel to acquire TCI? But he also emerged more powerful than ever. Writer Upton Sinclair attacks him. In December 1912, Morgan is called to testify before the Pujo Committee, a congressional investigation into the money trust. Louisiana Congressman Arson Pujo leads the investigation. The question: do Morgan and a few other bankers control America's economy like a cartel? The committee's findings are astounding. The partners of JPMorgan & Co. and directors of First National and National City Bank controlled. Louis Brandeis compared this to the value of all the property in the 22 states west of the Mississippi River. But the damage is done. The American public now fears the money trust as much as they once feared the panic. Visual: Federal Reserve Building, modern JPMorgan Chase, financial districts. March 31, 1913, Morgan dies in Rome. He was 75 years old. The Panic of 1907 added impetus toward a national debate on bank reform. In 1913, the Owen Glass Federal Reserve Act was passed. The Federal Reserve System was created, designed to be flexible, responsive to the economy, and independent of politics. Never again should one private citizen have that much power. But here's the irony. Morgan's bank didn't die, it evolved. Today it's known as JPMorgan Chase & Co., one of the largest banks in the world. JPMorgan Chase bought Bear Stearns and Washington Mutual, absorbing their assets just like he saved America from financial collapse. Twice. In 1895, he and the Rothschilds sold gold to the U.S. Treasury to prevent default, using an old Civil War statute. In 1907, he single-handedly organized Wall Street to stop a nationwide panic. But he also concentrated enormous power in private hands. He controlled industries, influenced presidents, shaped the economy to benefit himself and his allies. Was he a hero? Should any private individual ever have that much power? Visual: Modern Wall Street 2008 financial crisis. Too big to fail banks. Narration. In 1907, America learned that without a central bank, one man could hold the economy hostage. When banks become too big to fail, they still hold the economy hostage. Just like Morgan's empire, modern megabanks are so large and interconnected that their collapse would trigger economic disaster, so governments bail them out. With taxpayer money, we created the Fed to prevent another J.P. Morgan. Morgan used his influence to stabilize markets during crises. Private bankers? Both? Neither? J.P. Morgan saved America in 1907. The debate it started never did. If this made you think, subscribe. Next video. The Medici. How a banking family became kings and funded the Renaissance. Drop one word in the comments if you felt this. Power. See you on the other side.